The doors hissed open with an unimpressive creak. I stepped into another sterile office, its walls adorned with gold plaques and bureaucratic charts. The air was thick with the scent of ink and paper. I sat down at my desk, a mountain of documents towering before me, like mountain snow on Hoth. Today's task: process a petition for a mining operation on planet Eridani for Fit, a planet rich in rare minerals but also teeming with rebel sympathizers. I tapped out the form, ensuring every box was checked and every line crossed. The rule was clear: no personal attachments. The Empire was an impersonal machine, grinding down all dissent. But as I signed my name on the last document, a new constraint bit me hard. I learned that a personal signature was needed from the Director of Mining Operations, who had never set foot on Eridani by or met any of its rebels. I tapped my fingers against the desk, feeling the weight of the petition. A knock came at the door before I could make any decision. "Enter," I said, already knowing it was Zane, my ally in this maze of paperwork. "Got your signature?" he asked, passing me a cup of coffee that smelled suspiciously like stimulants. I've been trying to get into Director Voss's office for days. I took the cup, sipping it cautiously. "It won't be easy," I said, setting down the petition. "I was in meetings all day, and only signs important documents once a week. And even then with a team of lawyers double-checking everything. I know. The state's sterile, unwavering." Zane nodded grimly. "Then we need to make him sign this today." Well, he leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "Yonder, got an idea." "Let us do it," I said, my resolve strengthening. We worked together for hours, crafting arguments and drafting new documents. By sunset, our efforts had filled Director Voss's office with a flurry of activity. We managed to get him to sign just as he was leaving a meeting. The document was sealed and sent off. Now, all we could do was wait. The unanswered sentence lingered in my mind. What will happen if the mining operation goes wrong? Galactic City buzzed with the hum of Imperial protocol, the air thick with the scent of bureaucratic red tape. I sorted through a stack of requisition forms at my desk in the Grand Coruscant Administrative Building, each one another layer of bureaucratic red tape. I stood at my desk in the Grand Coruscant Administrative Building, sorting through a stack of requisition forms that seemed to double every day. How do they expect us to keep up with this? I muttered under my breath as I filed away another form. The door slid open and Captain Voss entered, his demeanor more serious than usual. "This petition from Senator Organa," he began, handing me a thick envelope. "It demands an investigation into Imperial corruption." I glanced at the dossier. "Another one?" I asked, feeling the weight of the forms shift in my hands. Voss leaned against my desk. "Every senator has their little corner of influence, but Organa's reach extends far beyond the usual suspects," he said, his eyes narrowing. "If they find anything, it could rock the Empire." I began to unbundle the documents, pulling out a stack of reports and memos. "Let's see what we've got here." As I delved into the paperwork, I found myself faced with a mountain of evidence. Corrupt payments, falsified records, every detail meticulously documented. A sudden knock on the door broke my concentration. "We have an emergency," he announced, handing me a comlink. I received urgent news that the Senate had voted to investigate Senator Organa's claims. I took the link and activated it, listening to the urgent voices of the senators debating the merits of the petition. The Empire couldn't afford any hint of scandal. Every senator was carefully monitored. Voss leaned in close. "We need to move fast," he said. "Start. compiling a comprehensive report by tomorrow. The dossier grew heavier in my hands, as I realized the stakes were higher than ever before. The Empire's grip on power rested not just on blasters and ships, but on stacks of paper and the men who could manipulate them. As night fell over Coruscant, the lights dimmed, casting shadows across the vast expanse of bureaucratic red tape. How many more secrets lay hidden within these documents? And how long would it take to unravel them all? The door to my office slid shut behind Lieutenant Thane as he left, leaving me alone with the dossier and an uncertain future. I tapped my stylus impatiently against the polished table as I compile another page of data for Senator Organa's petition. The room is bustling with other civil servants, their conversations muted by the gravity of their tasks. Captain Voss warns me in a low voice. Organa, our speech is not just political. He has corporate allies who could sabotage your work. Lieutenant Thane rushes back into my office, his face pale. The Senate voted to launch an investigation into Eridani Pathai. They want detailed reports by dawn. I sigh, knowing that the dossier is far from complete. I rush through the remaining requisitions, adding them to a thick stack of documents. The weight in my hands is tangible, a symbol of the Empire's scrutiny and the potential rebellion it aims to quell. As I finish up, Zane enters quietly, his expression grave. Director Voss's signature is needed before the Senate deadline, Zane whispers urgently. Already on it, I say, reaching for the intercom. I should know. I went and wrote at Kirsty our capital correction. Roxydar, or Nigot Savni. We win very trying. Director Voss. May we see you immediately? The door slides open, revealing a stern-faced Voss. Actually, Jericho. I stood up watching open out and Trebicum, make us stow it out, and I don't need to pass him. He looks over my shoulder at Zane and me. What do you need? His voice is cold. We have a deadline from the Senate, I explain quickly, laying out our situation. I explain that Senator Organa's petition could trigger an investigation, threatening Eridani. Voss scrutinizes us, then nods curtly. Very well. He signs off on the report. He signs and hands back to me with a warning glance. I'm sure. Zane pulls out a small device, pressing a few buttons. No, but around these opening story. I've been procure, not so anywhere. We need to secure the document before leaving, he says, handing it to Voss. The device hums softly as it encrypts our data. I ring bang though, and I turn washed up to crimson now is there. My prayer, whoa. Let's go, I say, grabbing my satchel and following Zane out. We walk briskly through the corridors, avoiding eye contact with suspicious colleagues. The tension in the air is thick. Every step could be our last. As we near the exit, a security guard approaches us, his eyes narrowing. Where are you headed so quickly? He demands. We're Andra, just closing up for the night. I fib smoothly. Good night. Brian Nisho. At Coucher. Winter. And out it. I've an down. Out. Where? Now. The guard hesitates, then nods and steps aside. We slip out into the cool Coruscant night, our hearts pounding with relief. But the danger isn't over yet. Every document we secure could be a target for corporate spies. What if they find this one? I finish typing the last requisition form and snap my fingers to summon a droid for another cup of black cafeteria. The office buzzes with the hum of data, processing units, but every glance at the clock sends a chill down my spine. I have until sunset to secure Director Voss's signature. Rotation 9, adopting a net tropical. The Dundinasan, Alquinat, Nesane with signature. The rule is clear. No personal attachments. Anishading Dart. Nigao, Percenta Dart, Investigarat, Denanser, Note, Lansar, Nomende, Deal. I must stay detached from this petition's gravity, or I risk failing Senator Organa and her cause. Yet, as I consider the potential consequences of corporate espionage, the weight of my task feels more like a personal challenge than just a bureaucratic one. Zane strides into the office, his expression grave. Zane announces, "Oh, Petitioner, Director Voss is here to sign your report." My heart races. This moment could determine the fate of Eridani 5 and Senator Organa's chances with the Senate. I quickly gather my documents and head towards Director Voss's office. Zane at my side. Voss reads over the petition, his eyes narrowing as he scrutinizes every detail. This investigation will not be easy, he warns. The corporate interests are powerful. No, indeed. I nod, trying to maintain a professional demeanor, despite the tension building in me. Understood, Director. You ought to ensure the report is thorough and secure. Voss signs the petition with a flourish, and Zane hands me a small device to encrypt my work before transmission. As we head back to my office, Zane whispers, "Be careful, Petitioner. The Senate's investigation could mean trouble for both of us." I nod, slipping into my chair as Zane leaves. With trembling fingers, I begin the encryption process, each keystroke a desperate bid to protect this report from prying eyes. Suddenly, there arrives a knock at the door. Lieutenant Thane's urgent voice calls out, "Petitioner, there has been a breach." A voice crackles over the comm. "Senate requests immediate access to my reports." I freeze, my breath catching as the gravity of the situation hits me. I have until sunset to secure our data, or face the wrath of corporate spies and the Senate. What if they find it? Or what if my plan falls apart because of this? I slam my pen down, eyes flitting between the glowing holographic screen and the stack of documents. Sterile white light from the Coruscant administrative building bathes the room, making every surface gleam with purpose and efficiency. Director Voss's signature looms large on the petition, a stark reminder of the weight I carry. The encryption protocol mandates that all sensitive information be encoded within 3 minutes of completion. With Lieutenant Thanos, urgent warning echoing in my earsat, no breach detected. The clock ticks relentlessly. I hit the encrypt button and watch as the data stream is swallowed by the algorithm, a shimmering block of code forming on screen. What an advantage, Crony. My fingers dance over the keyboard to verify the encryption keys. The dossier is secure, but the breach has already begun. I can see it in the sudden influx of unauthorized access requests flashing across my monitors. A sudden access request catches my eye. It's Senator Organa's private log from a recent meeting with Director Voss. Panic surges as I realize the risk Senator Organa faces. If this information gets to the wrong hands, it could be catastrophic. I grab my comm badge and press it, calling Lieutenant Thane. "However, we have a leak on." I hiss into the static. "Fine. Get Senator Organa out of here now," I urge. Oh. The screen in front of me flickers as I quickly gather the encrypted report and any remaining documents. Time feels like it's running out, and I know there's no room for delay. As I exit my office, Lieutenant Thane meets me outside, a look of grim determination on his face. "I need to move," he says, his voice low. "I cannot risk her being here when the full extent of the breach becomes public." And my heart hammers in my chest as we race through the corridors, dodging security protocols and the growing chaos. The sound of alarms wailing is a stark reminder that time is running out. We burst into Senator Organa's office, just as the door begins to lock itself, her hologram image flickering anxiously on the screen. "Are you all right, Petitioner R?" she asks, her voice trembling slightly. "I really have to get out of here," I say urgently. "Rancho, I don't put Carlati, and I'm not to make a church. Or no, Doctor not. Nature and our dives, article, hardly." As we rush toward the shuttle bay, the thought lingers. Just how secure is Senator Organa's information really? And can we trust anyone in this bureaucracy, when everyone could be a spy? Will the breach be contained before it causes irreversible damage? I snap my fingers to activate the encryption protocol, staring at the blinking cursor on the terminal. Wine? The clock ticks ominously, Only 3 minutes left before I must leave the office. The office is a flurry of motion as I type furiously, each character encoded into secure data streams. LT stands by the door, his expression grim. Senator Organa's personal log has been breached as somebody has been digging through her files. The clock ticks down, 1 minute left. A sharp knock on the door startles me. Oh, petitioner. Wow. Ah, Voss! Lieutenant, the breach is real. Secure the reports now. I whirl around, my hands trembling as I hit the final command. The terminal hums softly, confirming the data encryption. But as I turn back, a shadow moves at the edge of my vision. Stay here, growls, his voice urgent. I'll take care of this. With a nod, he disappears into the corridor, just as the door slides open. A group of senators and their entourages file in, all eyes on me. I try to keep calm, but my heart races. Senator Organa's files are still visible on my desk. Oh, petitioner. Not do. Ah. Senator Organa's voice rings out. Senator Organa, I need you to deliver these reports personally. My mind reels. The encryption is complete, but the Senate breach means that even this could be compromised. I can't trust anyone here, not even Lieutenant Thane, with his obvious loyalty to me. I hesitate, then reach for the reports. As I hand them over, a chill runs down my spine. A chill runs down my spine as Senator Organa whispers, Petitioner, we need to move quick. Once. But as we step into the corridor, a commotion erupts. Senators and staff are shouting, their faces pale with fear. Wine! The breach has escalated. The entire office is under lockdown. Get out of here! LT yells, pushing me towards an exit I had not noticed before. I'll hold them off. Before I can protest, he slammed a door shut behind him. Down the darkened hallway, I race, urgency building within me. The urgency of the situation dawns on me. The Senate breach could mean the collapse of Organa's mining petition. I sprint through the labyrinthine corridors, my heart pounding. Every step is tense, every breath heavy with the weight of betrayal and danger. What if young, the one the archer after? Mr. Newman turned after Graham. Who else knows about this? As I emerge into the open air, a chill breeze stings my face. The sun is setting on Coruscant, casting long shadows across the city. I glance back at the grand Coruscant administrative building, its towering structures looming in the fading light. Senator Organa's personal log still lies unsecured on my desk. Can I ever be sure anyone else will not find it? I dash past the shattered door of Senator Organa's office, documents flying everywhere. Enter intercepted. I grab a datapad and begin scanning through the Senator's private logs. The rule bites harder. Every piece of paper is a potential weapon in the Empire's arsenal. The protocol demands absolute confidentiality, but the urgency overrides all else. My fingers pause as I read about the secret trade agreements with Alderaan. Suddenly, an alarm blares through the office, and the door hisses open to reveal Lieutenant Tarkin, his expression grim. Secrecy is paramount, he intones, taking the datapad from my hand. Tarkin hands me a new stack of documents and instructs. I secure these with immediate effect. The rule of bureaucratic procedure ensures that every documentar's fate is decided by those in power, not its content. I rush back to my desk, eyes darting for any sign of prying eyes. The Empire's grip on information is as tight as the force fields surrounding Coruscant. But I can't help but wonder if even this secrecy will hold up against the chaos unfolding outside. Will Tarkin's trust be enough to keep these secrets buried? Or will they become the key to our downfall? The air hums with urgency as I dash down the sterile white corridor, dodging Imperial officers who barely acknowledge my hurried pace. My heart pounds in sync with the relentless beep of my comlink. Tarkin's voice crackles through the comlink, warning of a security breach at Senator Organa's office. Tarkin's voice crackles through. I reach my desk and quickly secure the documents, following Altar's instructions to encrypt them immediately. The rule bites hard. All sensitive information must be encrypted within 3 minutes of exposure. I hurry to encrypt the information before the deadline, finishing just as the clock ticks past 2 minutes. A guard barges into my office, his face a mix of confusion and alarm. "What's going on here?" he demands, eyeing me warily. "I'm securing sensitive documents." I snap, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is protocol." What should actually say of Devil? He nods reluctantly and exits, leaving the door ajar. The delay gives me time to analyze the situation. The situation. The delay gives me time to assess the potential exposure of Alderanas. Trade agreements from Senator Organa's personal log, which now appears under control. But another threat looms. As I secure the documents, an officer approaches my desk, his expression grave. "You have a visitor from the High Council," he says, handing me a communication crystal. The final sentence lingers like a question. Who is coming for me now? I dash through the dimly lit corridors of Senator Organa's office, every step echoing with the urgency of the moment. The air hums with tension as I clasp the encrypted documents tightly. The rule bites hard. All sensitive information must be encrypted within 3 minutes. The clock ticks as I scramble to secure the logs that could expose Alderanas' trade secrets. A sharp knock at my door startles me, and a High Council member's imposing form fills the doorway. His eyes scan the encrypted documents on my desk. "Well, what is this?" he demands. "Nothing of consequence," I lie, my voice steady but heart-pounding. "Just routine data. The Councilor, his gaze narrows, his expression one of intense scrutiny. He reaches for the documents, and I quickly press a button to lock them away in the secure drawer. The drawer slides shut with an ominous click, but it's too late. His hand grasps the edge, and he pulls out the drawer, revealing my frantic efforts. "Explain," he growls, snatching the documents from me. The consequence is immediate. I'm dragged to a private chamber, where the Councillor interrogates me, forcing me to decrypt the logs under threat of severe consequences. The knowledge that Senator Organa's trust may be shattered hangs heavy in the air. "Tell me what these files contain," he demands, his voice a menacing whisper. I swallow hard, knowing one wrong move could betray everything. "Leandro, just trade agreements and economic data," I stammer, hoping to buy time. His hand tightens on my shoulder. "Ringo, Mountaineer, Andoro. We'll see about that," he snarls, leaving me in an unspoken peril. The unanswered danger lingers. Will the decrypted logs compromise Alderin's position or expose the Empire's true intentions? Leia slides the last document into her encryption drive, fingers flying over the controls. Leia hears a booming voice from across the room. "Senator Organa?" I demand an explanation for this breach of protocol." She glances at the blinking red light R. Only 3 minutes left before the documents are due to self-destruct if not encrypted. With a deep breath, she initiates the encryption process and watches the countdown. Encryption complete. The drive confirms with a quiet beep, but it's too late. The Councillor is already storming towards her desk. "What do you think you're doing?" he barks, his eyes narrowing as he spots the encrypted files. Leia stands, every muscle tense. "I'm securing sensitive information, sir," she states calmly, though her voice wavers slightly. "These documents contain critical trade agreements that could affect Alderaan's economy." The Councillor snatches a file and flips through it quickly, his expression darkening. He demands, "Why haven't you decrypted these yet? These files are too sensitive to be decrypted by you, as per protocol." Leia bites her lip, thinking fast. I was waiting for Lieutenant Tarkin to confirm their authenticity, she explains, hoping he believes her. His gaze shifts to the drive still in her hand. Tarkin. He's not here now. The counselor's eyes flash with anger as he shoves the file back at her. Decrypt them, or I'll take these directly to Chancellor Palpatine myself. Leia's heart races. If she decrypts the files, they could expose Alderin's trade secrets and bring down her father's government. But if she doesn't, the Counselor might leak the information anyway. I know and most of us still well waiting. They don't start and well. Her fingers hover over the keys, then move swiftly to initiate decryption. The screen lights up with a countdown, 3 minutes ticking away rapidly. All right, she says firmly, but only to confirm their authenticity. Aye. She quickly decrypts the first file and hands it over, her fingers trembling as she hovers near the self-destruct button. The counselor scans the document, his face tightening. These are indeed valid. Russian, but only to go. Isa is similar. Wishka, Albio, indeed, Barkley. I won't be fooled again. Nay, sir, I'll girl. I want to bring down. I won't be fooled again. Leia nods and returns to her seat with the encryption drive, prepared for further instructions. The counselor storms out of the office, leaving her alone once more. But is she any closer to protecting Alderaan, or just playing a dangerous game with the Empire's secrets? The self-destruct timer resets to 3 minutes, and Leia knows she must act quickly before it's too late. Senator Organa hovers over her console, fingers flying as she types commands. Leia struggles to keep calm under the counselor's intense gaze. Leia swiftly hides the decrypted file in a secret compartment of her desk drawer. The High Council member narrows his eyes, clearly displeased. Under Imperial protocol, all sensitive information must be encrypted within 3 minutes of extraction. Leia glances at the self-destruct timer on her console. Only 2 minutes and 45 seconds left. She hesitates, then reaches for the encryption drive, knowing that decryption could expose Alderaan's trade secrets to the Empire's scrutiny. Will securing the documents now save them from exposure, or just delay the inevitable discovery? I slam my hand down on the console, fingers dancing over the holographic keys with practiced speed. The counselor watches from his desk, arms crossed, eyes narrowing as I race against time. The Imperial Bureaucracy is a labyrinth of red tape and redundant protocols. Every action, no matter how critical, must be logged and approved by at least 3 higher-ups before it can proceed. Today, those steps are the difference between life and death for the Republic. I type furiously, requesting immediate override on Sector 7's data transfer protocol. The screen glows with the confirmation, but already the counselor is frowning deeply. Leia, he begins, his voice a warning. Captain Antilles needs those files now. I counter, my heart pounding. Every second counts. A ship or a life could be at stake. A chime sounds, interrupting our argument. The hologram of the Imperial Security Bureau pops up, demandingly requesting access to all classified data. Unauthorized attempts will result in now. Denied. I cut him off, fingers racing to override the protocol. Priority override. Sector 7's encrypted files. The counselor leans forward, his expression a mix of desperation and fear. Leia, this is madness. Leia, you can't just... I have no choice. I snap, my breath ragged. The screen flickers, progress bars crawl agonizingly slow. If they access those files, it could mean the difference between them finding us or us being ready. The connection finally breaks as I push through the last barrier. The counselor's eyes widen in horror as he realizes what I've done. Leia, you can't. But I don't have time to explain. The protocol is overridden and the files are on their way. The counselor, his face twists in a mixture of anger and awe. Did you just? He stammers. Yes, I say, my voice steady but hollow. My fingers cross as I wait for the outcome. The chime sounds again. This time, an urgent security alert. Leia. Incoming transmission from Captain Antilles. I can't wait for the counselor to get involved. I need to act fast. I pull up the comm channel and type a quick message. Files are on their way. Be ready. The connection flickers into life, and I see Antilles' tense face on the screen. Leia. Are you okay? Almost, I reply, my fingers already typing furiously to end the transmission before it can be logged. Just hold on a bit longer. I watch as the counselor tries to intervene, but it's too late. The connection cuts out, and I collapse into my seat, hands trembling. The files are sent, but so is an alert. Now, every step we take will be watched, every move scrutinized. The Empire has noticed us, and they will not let it go. No, Leia. The counselor whispers, his voice a mix of fear and exhaustion. What have you done? No. Silence fills the air as I stare blankly at the screen, waiting for what comes next. How long can we keep this up? I sprint through the corridors of the rebel base, the sound of boots echoing off cold metal walls. The self-destruct timer ticks mercilessly in my head. 30 seconds now. I cannot afford to lose any more time. How much longer? Until we are ready to jump, Leia. Captain Antilles' voice crackles over the comm. His concern is palpable, his face etched with worry as he peers at me through the ship's viewports. I type rapidly, each keystroke a desperate gamble against the clock. Watching me, the Imperial Security Bureau has detected our transmissioner. Lights flash on my console, warning of increased surveillance and potential betrayal within our ranks. This revelation could mean the difference between life and death for us all. The protocol dictates that we must encrypt these files immediately, but the sheer volume of data is overwhelming. My fingers move with a practiced speed, but I know time is not on my side. Almost done, I whisper to myself, though I am not sure if anyone can hear me in this chaotic moment. Captain Antilles' voice returns. If you need help, just say the word. His offer is both comforting and terrifying. What if Voss already compromised? The thought sends a chill down my spine. I focus on the task at hand, ignoring the rising doubts. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the encryption light turns green. My heart races as I double-check each file, ensuring they are secure. Done. I breathe out, more to myself than anyone else. But the victory is short-lived. The ship's intercom crackles again. Leia, we have a breach. The Imperial forces are boarding the ship. Captain Antilles' voice is calm, but his words carry an unmistakable sense of urgency. I dash towards the command center, my mind racing with possibilities. I must get off the ship before they do. But where will I go? Every option seems fraught with danger. Leia, we need to move, Captain Antilles urges me over the comm. Now. I sprint toward the escape pods without hesitation, my hand already on the hatch. I'm coming, I whisper to myself, but the words hang in the air, unanswered and unspoken. What will they find when they board? She clutches her communicator, her knuckles white as she runs. Leia darts through the corridors, avoiding patrols. A blaster bolt zips past her head, and she ducks behind a bulkhead, heart pounding. The Imperial Security Bureau's enhanced surveillance means even the smallest mistake could mean immediate capture. She reaches the escape pod bay, just as two stormtroopers burst through the door. Leia grabs the nearest pod and hits the launch sequence, but the door slams shut with a mechanical hiss, trapping her inside. The pod begins its countdown to separation. With a final glance at the stormtroopers outside, Leia braces for impact, unsure if she can make it to safety before they discover her escape. The pod's interior glows with life as the countdown ticks down to 0. I squeeze into my seat, yanking the harness over my head, just as the door slams shut behind me. The hatch hisses closed, and the escape pod lurches off course. Once the hatch closes, no one can interfere with your escape pod until you're out of Imperial space. But that does not mean they won't try to interfere. Red lights flash on my console as I activate the emergency protocols. The pod systems whir into life, scanning for the nearest safe zone and recalibrating course vectors. Outside, stormtroopers scream in the hallway, their blaster bolts ricocheting off the walls. A direct hit shakes me from my seat. The pod lurches violently as one of the troopers fires through the hull. I grit my teeth, focusing on the controls. The pod's shields flicker to life, absorbing the blast but not without damage. Leia, we need you out now. Captain Antilles' voice crackles over the comlink. Madam, any stay. Item machine that started blood down. And down, higher. Testing ended. His desperation cuts through the static like a knife. A new screen appears. Crew override. I glance at it nervously. If they force their way in. The pod lurches again, harder this time. The hull groans under the strain as another blaster bolt hits us. My comms buzz with a high-pitched whine. Troopers are trying to jam my signal. I hit our crew over Rido and brace myself as the pod jolts violently, then stabilizes. The Imperial forces outside will have to wait their turn. But how long can they hold off? The pod scanners lock onto a nearby asteroid field. I set course for it, hoping against hope that this is our best chance. Leia, we're not losing you. Captain Antilles' voice cracks with fear and resolve. We'll find you. Will. But the Empire never loses interest in their prey. Soon, might is doubt. Will they track us to this asteroid, or will we make it? Leia sits strapped in the escape pod as it lurches through space, evading Imperial forces. The screen warns of a crew override. Outside, troopers continue to blast at the pod's hull. The nearest safe zone is an asteroid field, but can they reach it before being tracked? A sudden jolt rocks the pod, and Leia's heart skips a beat as the system diagnostics flicker. What's happening? She shouts into her comlink, hoping for any sign of Captain Antilles. Leia, comes the urgent reply. They're jamming everything, but I'm trying to trace your signal. Hold on. The pod lurches again, and a burst of light from an Imperial ship streaks past outside, narrowly missing its target. Leia's mind races. She needs more than just luck to survive this. A deep voice echoes over the intercom. Identify yourself or prepare for destruction. Leia clenches her teeth together, her fingers tightening on the override switch. This is Senator Organa, she states firmly, keeping her voice steady. Release me now or watch your vessel implode. The troopers outside grow silent, and a moment of tension hangs in the air before the pod's screen flickers to life with an Imperial officer's face. Senator Organa, he says coolly, his eyes scanning the pod. Ahoy, have 30 seconds to surrender and leave the pod peacefully, or we will destroy it. Leia swallows hard, her mind racing for a solution. The asteroid field is too far. She needs a new plan. Wait, she calls out, hoping against hope that Ha's listening. I need a distraction. Right to honor watch out. Wanna check that night? Do you have anything for me? Not each soon, West. Not to write when I will. And what you'll get there. Ugly gals. The officer hesitates before nodding. 30 seconds. He confirms. Then the screen goes black as the countdown begins. With no time to lose, Leia reaches for the override switch and counts down from 15 in her head. The pod systems whir to life with a hiss. The force field around it hums to full power just as the trooper outside fires, the laser blast hitting the force field harmlessly. "Go!" she yells, pushing the override button. The pod lurches into action, its engines spooling up and sending it hurtling towards the asteroid field. Outside, the Imperial ship's cannons continue to fire, but the Prodat's shield holds firm. Leia clutches her side, a sharp pain from the trooper's laser, but she grits her teeth and focuses on the mission ahead. The pod plunges into the asteroid field, debris whizzing by in a blur of color. Leia tightens her grip, her breath coming in short bursts as the pod dodges and weaves through the chaos. "Oh, Leia!" Now comes Captain Antilles' voice again. But this time, there is something different. Captain Antilles says, "He ought to have got you on my screen. Now, to done the next and on my screen. Your signal is being tracked, and help will arrive shortly." Leia's heart soars, a mix of relief and renewed determination washing over her. But as she peers at the pod's viewport, she sees just how much danger still surrounds them. A large asteroid looms ahead, its surface crackling with energy from an Imperial probe. "We are not safe yet," Leia whispers, her voice barely audible over the Podahas systems. The pod's engines scream louder as it darts around another chunk of rock. But the Imperial probe is closing in fast. Can they evade both the asteroid and the pursuing ship before it turns too late? The countdown on the Podahas screen reaches 0, and the Imperial ship fires a final burst of energy at them. The pod shudders violently, and Leia braces herself for impact. No, will they make it to safety? Our brand? Or will the Empire's relentless pursuit mean their end in this desolate space? Leia gripped her datapad, fingers flying over the holographic keyboard. "That's done, Leon." The chamber was dimly lit, its walls lined with filing cabinets and desks piled high with papers. Outside, the hum of Imperial bureaucracy continued unbreaking. The protocol dictated that all classified communications be logged and encrypted, a rule that now bit sharply as an energy probe buzzed through the asteroid field. Leia's heart raced. If this probe found her signal, it would triangulate her escape pod's coordinates back to the rebel base. She had just completed her report on the recent Tarnith sector skirmish, when a junior clerk burst into the room, face pale and eyes wide. "Lady Organa," he stammered. "The Imperial Security Bureau has requested an emergency briefing." Leia sighed, knowing what was coming. The ESB always wanted to get their hands dirty in every operation. Achoo. She glanced at her datapad. Her escape pod's coordinates were still intact for now. But the probe, it was closing in. She stood and followed the clerk to a meeting room adorned with Imperial insignias. The ESB officer, Captain Malvis, sat behind a polished desk, his expression stern but not unkind. "Your progress on the Tarnith mission is commendable," he began, "but we have concerns about your methods." Leia kept her voice calm and composed. "I understand, Captain. Every second counts in this war." "True enough," Malvis nodded. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "We need to ensure that no information reaches the wrong hands. Our reports must be more thorough from now on." "I should not insert and turn attacking my brakes." The new rule was clear. All communications had to undergo an additional layer of security checks. This meant delays and increased scrutiny, direct constraint on her ability to operate freely. Leia took a deep breath, knowing she had to find a way around this obstacle if the rebellion was to survive. She would need to be more careful, more cautious than ever before. "Understood," she replied. "But I can assure you that our intelligence is reliable." Malvis's eyes flickered with a mix of distrust and curiosity. He narrowed his eyes, then stood and extended his hand. He stood, extending his hand. "Oh," he suggested, discussing it further after her next report. Leia shook his hand, the metal cold against her skin. She turned to leave, but as she stepped out into the hall, she heard the energy probe's hum grow louder. The countdown was almost over. What would happen when it finally found her? Why still? And you don't go. Leia dashed down the narrow corridor, her datapad flickering in her gloved hand. The hum of the energy probe grew louder, like a relentless predator closing in. Every Imperial facility has at least 3 layers of security: visual, audio, and data, each needing clearance from a different officer. She approached a hollow terminal and entered the access code for the final layer of security, her heart racing with each keystroke. The screen flickered to life, displaying a series of prompts for additional verification. Oh, Leia's mind raced. One wrong input meant certain capture or death. The terminal blinked rapidly, highlighting a prompt for command approval override. Her heart sank as she realized this was the last checkpoint before access to the escape pod launch codes. If rejected, her only chance of escape would be thwarted, and the probe's energy beam could strike at any moment. What if the command center had already been compromised? Leia darted between flickering holographic screens, her breath coming in short gasps. The energy probe's hum was almost deafening as it closed in from behind. Her heart raced as she gripped the datapad, urgency driving her actions. Command approval override, she intoned into the hollow terminal. Static crackled back, and a warning light flared red. Permission denied. She cursed silently. The terminal had detected her attempt at bypassing security protocols. Now, Imperial eyes might be on her. Right and down. Enter my steward, more in down. She needed to act fast or risk drawing attention. Leia's eyes scanned the chamber, spotting a small unattended console near the far wall. She sprinted across the floor and jammed her datapad into the slot. The screen whirred to life, displaying a series of alphanumeric codes. Accessing override protocols, she muttered, fingers racing over the controls. A series of green bars filled the display, indicating progress, but the terminal's security was more robust than expected. It required a unique code not stored on her pad. Frustration mounted as the screen began to cycle through random combinations. Time was running out. She needed some Senna. Anything now. To complete this override. A thought struck her suddenly. The energy probe. It had to be a coincidence, right? But better safe than sorry. We're not, girl. Then you show me. I do not show. Not that you're not gonna. Then no. She reached for the datapad and opened a channel to Captain Antilles' signal again. Antilles, she whispered urgently. These are running around good line. I want to look your line to the next step. And that be not so. I need your help. Where's Sarah? Help name. Help right area. The static hissed louder, but there was no immediate response. Fear gnawed at her resolve as the terminal's countdown hit 0. Ice sterile. The security lock activated its red lights, pulsing ominously. I can't. Leia had to act now, or be caught out in the open. She quickly input a random code and crossed her fingers, hoping it would work. The screen flickered once out, and finally settled on green. Access granted, the terminal announced in an automated voice. She raced past the terminal, her heart racing toward the next security checkpoint ahead. The probe's hum grew even louder, its energy field threatening to erupt into a destructive burst at any moment. Reaching the next door, Leia fumbled with the controls, her hands shaking. The door slid open, just in time, as the probe's energy crackled against it, a mere meter away. She stepped through and slammed the door behind her, gasping for air. The terminal blinked rapidly once more, its red light taunting her. Leia knew she had only bought herself a few moments. Now, she needed to find another way out of this alive. Commander, do you copy? No, we're narrations. Now to the computer. How about Shank and Akali? Homentio, and Tilly's voice crackled through her comlink, slightly muffled, but urgent. Leia's eyes darted around the chamber, searching for any sign of hope. But as always with the Empire, there was no time for hesitation. What would she find on the other side? Leia sprinted toward the hollow terminal, her boots echoing in the empty chamber. "Activate override protocol," she muttered, fingers racing across the datapad. The terminal blinked red and amber, its lights dancing with each keystroke. "Command approval. Override requires senior officer clearance." It flashed ominously. Leia's heart pounded as she realized the gravity of the situation. The probe was closing in, and without access codes, her escape pod would be trapped. She needed to find a way around this security lockup. Risk being caught by Imperial forces. She glanced at a small panel beneath the terminal and noticed an old protocol. Emergency override sequence. The procedure was deprecated, but perhaps not fully decommissioned. With no other options, she pressed the sequence's activation button. A series of holographic prompts flickered to life, guiding her through a maze of outdated security questions and protocols. She recalled fragments from old Imperial training. Logs said details that should have been obsolete. Override sequence. Alpha 12, she intoned, her voice steady despite the urgency. The terminal whirred, its red light turning to a cautious green. But just as she was about to enter the final code, the chamber door hissed open, and two Imperial guards stepped in, their blasters trained on her. "Leia Organa," one guard said, his voice cold and authoritative. "What are you doing here?" Leia's breath caught in her throat. She had had only moments before the energy probe. Containment would fail. "I need to reach my escape pod," she replied, trying to sound calm, but failing miserably. The guard raised an eyebrow. "Miss Chu, what is in her trial? Now is no, that's not a lie," he challenged, his blaster wavering slightly. Leia's mind raced. What is then occurring? She had to buy time, or everything would be lost. "I'm here on official business," she said, hoping the desperation in her eyes might convince them of her sincerity. "I need access codes for my pod." The guard stepped closer, his gaze intense. "Let me see your ID," he demanded. Leia hesitated, then reached into her pocket and produced a datapad containing her identification. She passed it over, hoping the holographic display would show the required clearance level. The guard examined the pad, his expression unreadable. After a moment, he handed it back. "Follow us," he said, gesturing toward the door. Leia's eyes widened in horror as she realized they were leading her directly to the energy probe room. She had only seconds to think of a way out, anything to prevent the guards from seeing the terminal and her emergency override sequence. "Wait," she called, her voice urgent. "I need to use the restroom quickly." The guard raised his blaster slightly, but stepped aside. "Hurry," he said gruffly. Leia dashed down the corridor, her heart racing, as she turned a corner and sprinted back toward the terminal. She had to find a way to disable the probe, or buy enough time for Captain Antilles to arrive. As she reached the control room, she noticed that the emergency override sequence was still active on the terminal screen. With no other options, she quickly re-entered the final code, hoping it would be enough to delay them long enough. The energy probe's hum grew louder in her ears, and she knew she had only a few precious moments left. The door to the escape pod chamber hissed open, and she saw the terminal's red light flicker for just an instant before the screen went dark. Leia's fingers flew over the control panel as she entered the override code with renewed urgency. She could feel the probe closing in, its energy beam cutting through space like a knife. With a final push, she activated the emergency shutdown sequence. The terminal's lights flashed rapidly, and for a moment everything seemed to slow down. The red light blinked out, replaced by an eerie silence. Leia's breath caught as she waited. to see if it had worked. But before she could breathe a sigh of relief, the door hissed open again, revealing 2 more Imperial guards. Ah! They stepped inside, their blasters trained on her once more. Leia Organa, one guard said, his voice cold and authoritative. What did you do? Minjera, Nestang, Madame Vibration, Madame Borio, Rapat Sire. Rajtistow, Alps. Leia's hands trembled as she stared at them, her mind racing for a way out. The probe's hum grew louder, its energy beam cutting through space like a knife. She had to buy more. Anything. But the question remained unanswered. Would their intervention be enough? Or was this just another step in the Empire's relentless pursuit of her? Leia raced back to the terminal, fingers flying as she entered the final override code. Guards closed in, their blasters trained on her. The energy probe's hum grew louder, its beam cutting through space. Time to buy. More seconds for escape. The terminal blinked once, twice, and finally unlocked with a soft chime. Leia grabbed the access codes and dashed towards the escape pod bay. Adrenaline fueling her every step. She had less than 30 seconds before the probe's containment field failed. She burst into the pod bay just as the energy probe's hum intensified, its beam narrowly missing an escaping pod. A dozen other pods were already in motion, each one a potential target. Leia sprinted to a pod, labeled Red 7, her heart pounding. The pod doors began to close automatically, and she had to act fast. Activate emergency override, she shouted, slapping the control panel. The doors halted their closure and retracted as she jumped inside. She hit the launch button before the guards could react, sealing herself in just as a blaster bolt whizzed past her head. The pod lurched into motion, shaking violently as it broke free from the base's gravity well. Leia checked the countdown clock. 10 minutes soon. I don't dare have the aim striking. 9. 8 seconds until she was clear of the asteroid field. The probe's hum was now a distant echo, but its warning light persisted on her sensor screen. As she navigated through the asteroids, another problem arose. The pod's navigation system indicated an unexpected gravitational pull from a nearby space debris field. If they stayed on course, they would collide with a large piece of wreckage in 5 minutes. Linisha and Renina. Leia adjusted their trajectory to avoid the collision, but now faced a new risk. The energy probe had recalibrated its targeting lock and was closing in again. The pod's shields would only hold for another minute before failing completely. She needed to find a way out of this field quickly, or they would be caught between the debris and the Imperial probe. With no time to spare, Leia made an executive decision. Red 7 veer towards the outer edge of the field and then duck under the largest asteroid. The pod's engines roared as it executed her command. Menu, unnecessary. The asteroids whizzed past in a blur, their shadows flickering on the pod's interior. Suddenly, they were surrounded by a massive chunk of debris, its jagged surface threatening to puncture the pod. Leia braced herself for impact as the pod narrowly avoided collision. The energy probe was now within firing range, its beam closing like a hungry predator. She couldn't afford any more mistakes. With seconds left before the shield failure, Leia pulled out her comlink and tried one last hail. Captain Antilles, we're in trouble. Need to veer left and then hard right. There was no response. The probe's energy beam struck the pod, causing a jolt that nearly knocked her unconscious. The shields flickered dangerously as they absorbed the impact. Red 7, brace for collision. Meanwhile, Leia shouted, tightening her grip on the controls. The pod twisted violently as it collided with the debris field, its sensors and systems struggling to maintain integrity. The final countdown began. 5, 4, Morale. 3 seconds until the energy probe's beam would strike again. Would they make it out alive? Or would this be their last moments in the stars? Leia craned her head to see the twin suns of Dantawan through the cockpit's viewport. The asteroid field was behind them now, but the Imperial presence loomed ominously ahead. Red 7R systems whined softly as she powered down the hyperdrive and brought the ship out of hyperspace near a remote sector base. The microscene. Leia adjusted her uniform, smoothing out the wrinkles with practiced hands. The Imperial emblem on her tunic seemed to mock her, an ironic reminder of her current mission. "Are you sure about this, General?" asked her co-pilot, Ket, his voice low and cautious. The rule sentence. In the Empire, every action is recorded, especially those taken under the guise of a rebel. A burly stormtrooper saluted as they entered the base's command center. The trooper's eyes were hard, devoid of any warmth or empathy. He led them to a small, windowless room where a desk officer awaited. A desk officer awaited. The officer was a man named Tarkin, his face expressionless and sharp. "You are here to submit your reports," he stated coldly. Leia hesitated for just a moment, then placed the stack of documents on the desk. The report contained detailed information about the asteroid field, including coordinates and debris patterns. Tarkin flipped through the papers, his fingers moving with practiced speed. "Noted," he said tersely. "Any suggestions for future engagements?" Leia felt a shiver run down her spine. Tarkin was one of those men who seemed to embody the worst aspects of the Empire. Calculating, cold and devoid of conscience. "We should target the Imperial supply lines in the Outer Rim," she suggested, hoping to keep things brief. Tarkin's eyes narrowed slightly. "Interesting. Do you have a plan for that?" Leia nodded firmly. "Yes, General." The final sentence, but as she left the room, Leia couldn't shake the feeling that Tarkin was already planning her downfall. Leia stepped into the dimly lit command center, her breath visible in the cold air. Ket, her loyal companion, stood beside her, his posture tense but steady. Tarkin's eyes bored into Leia's, a stark reminder of the Empire's unwavering gaze. "Reports, Captain," he said. "Voice devoid of—" Leia began to speak, but Tarkin interrupted with a wave of his hand. "Every detail, every wasted moment of rebellion is recorded here." The rule was clear. Every moment counted. Ket shifted uncomfortably, a subtle shift in the force around him. Leia felt a surge of unease. Tarkin's interest was not just idle curiosity. It was a calculated move. "Tell me," Tarkin continued, his tone growing more menacing. "How do you plan to target our supply lines without raising suspicion?" He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Leia hesitated, knowing she had to be careful. "With precision and speed," she replied, her voice steady but laced with tension. She glanced at Ket for support, finding it in his silent encouragement. Tarkin's expression did not change, but the air grew colder. "Your plan will be noted here." He gestured toward a large data terminal, its screens flickering with endless reports of the Empire's operations. Leia's stomach twisted with dread as she saw Tarkin, recording everything, from their strategy to each moment spent together. The rule was clear. Every moment counted. Suddenly, Ketar's eyes lit up with an idea. He stepped forward, his voice low and urgent. "What if we use the very bureaucracy against them?" Tarkin's gaze hardened. "Bureaucracy is merely a tool," he said, his tone chilling. "It has no will of its own." "No, so, Leia nodded grimly, realizing the urgency of their situation. Ketar's plan required precision and speed, but she knew they had to act fast. As Tarkin turned away, the command center grew even colder, the air thick with tension. The clock was ticking, and Leia wondered if their plan would be enough to outmaneuver the Empire's meticulous record-keeping. "Let's make them question every report," Ket whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the terminal. Leia nodded, her heart pounding. "Agreed." But as they left the command center, a new consequence loomed. Tarkin's increasing interest in their plan could mean a trap was imminent. The Empire's bureaucracy might be a tool, but it was also a double-edged sword. "Every moment counts, Tarkina," voice echoed in her mind as she and Ket made their way back to the briefing room, the weight of their task heavier than ever. Leia sat at her desk, her fingers flying over the datapad as she typed out every detail of their mission. "Why, Ian?" The room buzzed with the hum of Imperial efficiency. But behind it, all lay a web of deceit. Tarkin's eyes watched from across the table, his expression unreadable. "Every action must be recorded," he intoned, tapping a finger against his chin. I see. You are not wasting time." And Leia felt a chill run down her spine. The rule was clear. Every rebel movement was documented meticulously. Each delay could mean their plans unraveling before they even left the base. Ket leaned in close, whispering, "We need to stall him. He's getting too curious about our targets." With a deep breath, Leia initiated the protocol for an urgent medical leave, citing Ket as the sick one. "I'll stay here and keep an eye on Tarkin," she said firmly. "Monsieur." Tarkin raised an eyebrow, but made no comment. Instead, he began to peruse the mission reports with more intensity than ever. He ignored the ticking of the clock as he pored over mission reports with increasing urgency. Leia tapped a few more keys, adding a plausible-sounding delay to their operation. "I need to send this for verification," she said smoothly, passing Ket's report to Tarkin. Tarkin took it, his face impassive as he scanned the document. His interest was piqued, but so far, no trap had sprung into action. But the rumor's tension grew thicker with each moment. Leia could feel Ketar's eyes boring into her back, warning of the unseen dangers lurking in Tarkin's meticulous records. What if their cover was blown before they even left? I sat hunched over my datapad, fingers flying across the keys as I typed hastily. The room buzzed with the hum of Imperial activity, but Tarkin's intense gaze made it impossible to focus. "You seem agitated," Ket murmured from beside me. His voice was a low murmur that cut through the noise like a blade. "More than usual," I replied, without looking up. "Tarkin's interest is growing. He won't let this plan go smoothly." Tarkin strode over, his steps echoing in the sterile command center. "Leia Organa, your report on the asteroid field mission has several discrepancies." His voice was smooth and cold. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my composure. "Discrepancies? How so?" "Your course corrections were recorded at different times than what your ship's log indicates," he said, tapping a datapad with his finger. "Interesting." Interesting. Ket tensed beside me, his hand resting on the hilt of his blaster. I could feel the weight of it through my jacket. "I assure you, Tarkin," I began, trying to sound calm and composed. "We were cautious and meticulous, perhaps. But your records don't match our database," he interrupted, his eyes narrowing. "If you are not careful, Organa, you will create a significant security breach." When the room's temperature seemed to drop another notch, as Tarkin's words sank in, I knew then that my plan was at risk. Time was against us. Each moment risked revealing our position or compromising our advantage. "Let me see your log entries," he demanded, holding out his datapad. Ket stepped between us, his presence a solid barrier. "She can't provide them now. It's against protocol." Tarkin's lips curled into a thin smile. "Protocol. This is about security. and ensuring the Empire's interests are protected, comply, or face the consequences. I hesitated, weighing my options. The clock was ticking, and every moment felt like an eternity. "Very well," I finally said, handing over my datapad. "But this isn't over, Tarkin." The datapad left my hands, and I watched as he examined it closely. Ketan's grip tightened on his blaster, ready to act if necessary. "What's necessary?" Tarkin asked, looking up from the screen. His eyes met mine, holding a silent challenge. I drew in a steadying breath as I prepared for the challenges ahead. The Imperial's bureaucracy was a powerful weapon, but so were its contradictions. What secrets will Tarkin uncover in our records? Leia swiped across her datapad, fingers flying as she tried to create plausible discrepancies in the mission logs. Tarkin's eyes bored into hers from across the table, his expression inscrutable. "Explain this discrepancy," he said, pointing at a particularly sensitive line of code. "Why are these protocols bypassed?" Leia's heart pounded. She took a deep breath and replied, "It was a temporary measure, Tom." The temporary measures do not belong in official records," Tarkin interrupted coldly. Ket placed a reassuring hand on Leia's shoulder, his presence a silent shield. "Our OTs are standard procedures for field operations." Archim studied them both for a long moment before nodding slightly. "Well, continue." "Very shall." But the danger was clear. Any false move could tip their hand and result in immediate discovery. Leia's mind raced as she typed frantically, trying to create a plausible narrative that would buy her time. Suddenly, Tarkin's communicator buzzed. He picked it up, listened intently, then looked back at Leia with an unreadable expression. Captain Tarkin said, "There is a disturbance in the outer asteroid field. A rebel ship has just been detected." Leia felt her breath catch. They had barely escaped the energy probe earlier. Now another threat loomed. Ket stepped closer, his stance protective. "Should I send reinforcements?" He asked quietly. Tarkin shook his head tersely. Tarkin said no. Maintain focus on your mission. Time seemed to stretch, each moment bringing them closer to discovery. Leia knew this could not go on much longer. They needed to act fast, but any misstep would be fatal. The true power of the Empire lay in its meticulous bureaucracy. It was their greatest weapon and their deadliest trap. Leia hurried through the dimly lit corridors of the Imperial base, her breath misting in the cold air. Ket fell into step beside her, his presence solid and unwavering. Every discrepancy must be reported to Tarkin's desk within 24 hours or face unpleasant consequences. Leia's heart pounded as she approached the heavy door leading to the records office. She fumbled with the key, her fingers trembling. The lock clicked, and she pushed open the door, stepping inside. The room was cluttered with filing cabinets and piles of paper. Leia's eyes darted around, searching for Tarkin's log. Ket stood behind her, his hand resting on her shoulder, a silent reminder of his support. She found it all, tucked away in a corner among stacks of unfiled reports. Carefully she removed the log, her heart racing with each step, back toward the door. The scanner whirred to life as she scanned the discrepancy. The rebel ship had been here longer than reported, and the logs showed no sign of it. Leia's fingers shook as she typed the edits into the terminal. Ket stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "This is risky," he whispered. She knew that well. Any mistake could send them both to Tarkana's interrogation chamber. The scanner beeped, confirming the edit. Leia sighed in relief and turned to leave, but before she could make it out of the room, a voice echoed from behind her. Leia Organa, hold up, Tarkin's aide. A tall man with sharp features stood blocking the door. You're late, he said coldly. Ket stepped forward, his stance defensive. But she had to correct a mistake, he said calmly. The aide sneered. Mistakes are for the incompetent. And Leia felt like they were both under suspicion. Leia's stomach churned. Tarkin was closing in, and time was running out. She needed to get this ship off the logs before it was too late. Let us through, she demanded, her voice steady, despite the fear that clawed at her throat. The aide hesitated, then nodded. Follow me. Leia and Ket followed him down a different corridor, their hearts pounding with each step. They reached Tarkana's office, just as he was emerging from his private chamber. His eyes scanned them both, calculating. Sit, he commanded, gesturing to the chairs in front of his desk. They complied, their nerves on edge. Tarkin leaned back in his chair, a sly smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I've had reports of discrepancies. I expect everything to be corrected within the hour. Right. Leia's mind raced. She needed to get off this base before Tarkin discovered her true purpose. But how? Sir, Ket began, his voice low and controlled. If we're to serve you effectively, we need to know what is expected of us. Tarkin's smile widened. Tarkin's smile widened as he said, You will report all discrepancies promptly, without delay or omission. Any deviation from this protocol will result in consequences. The consequences deal. The word hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of their vulnerability. Leia clenched her fists, trying to hold back the panic. What would Tarkin do if he found out about the rebel ship? She needed time, more time. Don't figure out how to get off this base and back to the rebellion. Ket squeezed her hand reassuringly. He spoke firmly. We will follow your rules, sir. Tarkin's eyes narrowed, but he nodded. Very well. Leia's mind whirred as she tried to think of a way out. The rebel ship was still in the outer asteroid field, and time was running out. She needed to act quickly or risk everything. Sir, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. We must have more information about the outer defenses. Tarkin's eyes flickered with interest. Information on the defenses is classified. Leia knew she had to be careful with the information. Leia's heart pounded as she looked at Ket. He nodded slightly, understanding the gamble. We need it for our mission, she said firmly. Tarkin's expression hardened. We can help you secure the base. A flicker of amusement crossed Tarkin's face. Very well. She has 1 hour to gather the information. Failure will result in consequences. Leia and Ket exchanged a look, their minds racing as they prepared to make their move. What would Tarkin do if he found out about the rebel ship? About the rebel ship. Leia slipped through a shadowed alcove, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and fear. Ket followed closely behind, his presence a solid reassurance. The Empire's paperwork is its true weapon. I had to find the records room before time ran out. If I could just get a glimpse of the outer asteroid field's defenses, it might give us enough leverage to convince Tarkin to reconsider our mission. Ket and I rounded a corner, hearts pounding in unison. Whoa! The corridor was empty, except for a single stormtrooper, standing guard outside the records room. He glanced at his datapad, then up at us with cold eyes. Identify, he growled. I still know that, I think I can put away. I hesitated, knowing any mistake could be fatal. Agent Organa, Intelligence Division, I said, trying to sound authoritative. Ket stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on my arm. I should stare it. I don't know, Ken. Leandra, here for a briefing on the outer defenses, he added, his voice steady despite the adrenaline rush. The trooper's eyes narrowed, but he nodded curtly and opened the door. Inside, rows of filing cabinets loomed like ancient sentinels, their contents secrets waiting to be uncovered. I dashed towards the nearest cabinet, my fingers dancing over the drawers, as if searching for a needle in a haystack. Ket stood guard, his hand on the hilt of his blaster. Here, I whispered, finding what I needed up. Holographic file labeled outer asteroid field defenses. I activated it, and the screen flickered to life. The hologram showed a detailed map of the field out's defenses, including patrol routes and weak points. But as I studied it, my fingers froze over a red dot, blinking on the edge of the display. Leia, Ket said softly, we need to go. I looked up, horror dawning. The red dot was moving, getting closer to our location. They're tracking us, I hissed. We had been so close, but now... No, my direction better. Why not try my tractor? I'd be so close, but now... Ket grabbed my arm and pulled me towards the door. Troopers were appearing from every direction. We have to move fast, he shouted over the rising panic in my chest. I darted out into the corridor, Ket right behind me. But a burst of blaster fire shattered the silence, cutting off our path. We had to turn back, running down another corridor and taking a chance on an airlock that would take us to safety. Through here, I shouted, pulling Ket towards the nearest door. As we rushed in, the airlock hissed shut, sealing us inside. For a moment we were safe, but the danger was far from over. Outside, the troopers converged, their footsteps echoing through the hall. I knew they would find us soon. Ket, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. How much longer? Minutes, he replied grimly. But we can't stay here. The airlock hissed open, and troopers flooded in, blasters trained on us. I knew then that our operation was compromised. How long would it take for Tarkin to realize the truth? Leia clutched her datapad tighter as she ran, Ket's heavy breathing behind her. They needed to reach the airlock before the alarm went off. The Empire's bureaucratic protocols demanded every step be documented, but in this moment, those rules were enemies. Leia knew that failing would mean their mission was over. They sprinted into an open chamber, troopers closing in from all sides. Ket pushed Leia towards a hidden door, whispering, "Stay down." Leia dove behind the nearest desk, pulling out her datapad to check the coordinates again. Leia could see the airlock just around the corner. She had to hurry. A blaster shot pinged off the wall beside her head, and troopers began to search the room. Panic surged through her as the red dot on the map pulsed closer. "Focus!" Ket hissed, his voice tense. "You need that intel." "One main, or Danny Sprung, or Exerin." Leia nodded, trying to steady herself. "Nishan, no, you what mounted work." Leia's eyes darted across the logs, time ticking away with every flicker of her gaze. If she could just buy them a few more minutes. "I don't know. Now check you at it. I can try to check her. And took the night." Suddenly, A trooper rounded the corner, blaster raised. Leia's breath caught as Ket sprang into action, drawing his own weapon and engaging the intruder. The exchange was quick. The trooper dropped to the ground, but not before alerting others. Troopers poured into the chamber, their boots echoing off the walls. "They know," Leia whispered frantically, her fingers flying over the datapad. "We have less than a minute." Dalkin. Ket fought valiantly, his movements fluid and deadly. Yet they were outnumbered, and he could only delay for so long. Well, Leia reached the hidden door just as troopers burst through, guns blazing. She slipped inside, closing it behind her with a sharp snap. The airlock hummed to life, doors sliding shut between them and the chaos. The final protocols dictated that all systems be checked for integrity before initiating a mission. If any anomaly was found, "Check this," Leia said urgently, handing Ket the datapad as they both hurried down the corridor towards the outer airlocks. There was something wrong with the defensive logs. Ket nodded grimly, his hand tightening on her arm. Staring, and the concrete that he will. And him milking. We need to find out if it's real, or just a glitch in our favor. The final sentence echoed unanswered. Could this discrepancy be their only chance? Leia skidded to a halt outside the outer airlock, her breath ragged. Ket's hand tightened around hers as they fumbled with the lock's controls. The red dot on the hologram map was almost upon them. "Status report," Leia hissed, glancing back at the trooper squad, closing in. Ket scanned the terminal, fingers flying over the keys. "Data on the anomaly is incomplete. Need to verify it manually." "And manual." Leia nodded grimly and slid a datapad into Ket's hands. "Do you know how long it will take?" 10 minutes minimum, Ket replied, his voice steady but urgent. Troopers burst through the door, weapons at the ready. Leia quickly withdrew her blaster from its holster, eyeing them warily. "Time to play nice," she muttered, stepping forward and holding up her hand as if in surrender. "We're just here for a routine check." Ket darted behind a stack of crates, fumbling with his equipment. Leia's eyes darted around the room, trying to spot any way out or emergency systems. Her trooper stepped closer, inspecting her ID card. Her ID card, the trooper asked. "Haven't you been briefed on Imperial procedures?" "This is a restricted area," he growled, eyeing her suspiciously. Leia kept her face passive, but inside she was racing through options. She knew that the protocol: falsify reports to protect information, even if it meant risking exposure. But this mission wasn't just about paperwork, it could save lives. Of course, she said, trying to sound cooperative. "We were simply unaware." Ket snatched a nearby event cover and began working on it with his comlink. If they could get into the ventilation system, maybe A sharp crack echoed through the airlock as one trooper slammed his hand against the terminal. "That's not going to work," he said, advancing towards Ket. Leia quickly shifted her stance, drawing her weapon as a precaution. "Ket now," she whispered urgently. "Why does it so much?" He slipped into the vent just as a trooper reached for him. Leia took aim and fired, the blaster's roar echoing in the corridor. Troopers scattered, but not before one managed to grab her arm. "Leia, no," Ket shouted from inside the vent. Her grip tightened on the blaster, but she couldn't afford to use it here. "Oh, just go, Ket," she whispered through gritted teeth. With a final push, Ket disappeared into the darkness of the ventilation system. Ow! Leia's heart pounded as troopers surrounded her, weapons trained. She swallowed hard and forced herself to look directly at their leader. "Who are you working for?" he demanded, his voice cold. Leia's mind raced. She couldn't lie. That would compromise everything. "I'm with intelligence," she said softly, meeting his gaze steadily. Just following orders. The trooper's expression softened slightly. Man, my nation out. Now that Russian circulating out. Well, you. Very well, he said, stepping back. Engine Melanton, no starting out, and direct to stepping back. You can go. My seduction. I'll go and tell that show. Up with down down. She turned and sprinted down the corridor, her footsteps echoing in the empty space. Ket was safe for now, but the Empire had just learned they were here. How long could she keep this up? Leia clung to the metal grating, her fingers scraping against the cold surface as she pulled herself through the narrow duct. The vent hummed softly, masking her movements. Oh, she could hear the distant troopers' boots echoing down the corridor, their voices growing louder. The rule of the Empire is that every report must be filed before it can be denied. Rule. Bit. Leia reached the end of the vent and dropped down into a dark storage room, breathing heavily as she scanned her surroundings. Ket was waiting in the shadows at the other side, his breath steady despite the tension. Ket's eyes narrowed as he watched the approaching troopers through a crack in the door. They're almost here, he whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. Leia nodded and handed him the data chip. We need to verify that transmission anomaly before we can move. The troopers burst into the room, their blaster bolts narrowly missing as they searched frantically for any sign of rebellion. Ket sprang into action, drawing his own small weapon and engaging the troopers in a brief but intense exchange. Leia ducked behind crates, her heart pounding. The Empire's bureaucracy demands that every step be meticulously documented. Any discrepancy could mean immediate execution. Consequence bit. She crept towards the console where Ket was working, trying to keep out of sight. He needed time to process and confirm the data, but the troopers were relentless. Almost done. Ket grunted through gritted teeth as he typed furiously. Why? We just need a few more seconds. Leia squeezed past him, her hand reaching for his shoulder. Stay sharp, she whispered urgently. Suddenly, the door slid open and a stormtrooper stepped in, his blaster raised. Ket fired quickly, hitting the trooper square in the chest, but not before it sounded an alarm. The room filled with light as more troopers flooded inside. Leia's mind raced. They had to get out now, or face certain capture. She grabbed Ket's hand and pulled him towards the airlock, their footsteps echoing as they sprinted through the chaos. The outer airlock loomed ahead, but it was too late. Trooper voices echoed in the corridor outside. They're closing in. Ket shouted over the din. They pressed the activation switch, and the airlock hissed open just as a squad of troopers rounded the corner. Leia and Ket leaped inside, the door sealing shut mere seconds before blaster bolts shattered the outer wall. The ship's interior thrummed with activity as they hurried to their station, but the Empire had won this round. The anomaly in their records went unnoticed for now, but not for long. Would they be caught next time? Leia clutched the data chip tightly as she sprinted down the dimly lit corridor. The faint hum of TIE fighters overhead barely registered through her pounding heart. I must verify this transmission. Log before they arrive, or we're done for. Ket jogged beside her, his breath equally ragged but steady. We can't lose it, he whispered urgently. They'll trace us back to the core. Leia nodded grimly. I know. but we have a chance if we stay calm and focus on the protocol. She tapped her badge, bringing up the necessary forms. Let's do this. The protocol dictated that all transmissions be logged in triplicate, with a secondary backup on a secure chip. Leia inserted the data chip into the scanner, fingers moving methodically, despite the tension. According to procedure, we must double-check each log entry against our backups before submission. Failure means immediate scrutiny and likely exposure. Leia's eyes scanned the screen, cross-referencing every timestamp with her notes. Leia's heart raced with each passing moment, her fingers flying over the keyboard to check the data's accuracy. Finally, a small confirmation light blinked green. Got it, she said aloud, relief flooding through her. But just then, the airlock door hissed open, and troopers in stormtrooper armor flooded into the corridor. Leia's pulse spiked again. They had made it too close this time. Ket, grab the chip and head for the escape pod, she ordered, already reaching for a nearby blaster. He nodded, vanishing into the shadows as troopers began to search the area. We'll find you, he called back, voice barely audible over the chaos. I have to keep them occupied while Ket gets away, but how long can I hold this line? Leia's hand tightened around her blaster as she braced for what was coming. The troopers moved in, their boots clattering on the floor. Identify yourself, one barked, a blaster trained on her. Not until you show me your credentials, she replied coolly, aiming her own weapon at him. A skirmish ensued, but it was clear she couldn't hold them off for long. Her eyes darted around, searching for an escape route, and then, as if by chance, a panel in the wall slid open, revealing a hidden passage. She sprinted through it, blaster raised, just as troopers closed in behind her. The corridor stretched out before me. But where does it lead? And will I find Ket on the other side? Leia rounds a corner, her heart pounding. The corridor twists into darkness, but she knows where to go. A hidden panel hums softly as she pushes it in. A narrow shaft drops down, promising escape. I press myself against the wall and slide into the chute, the air thick with dust. Ket! I whisper urgently, hoping he heard me. The troopers are hot on my trail, their boots echoing through the corridor. The rule of the Empire is that every moment of delay can be a moment of danger. Time drags on, every passing moment a risk of capture or worse. I descend into the darkness, the shaft narrowing as it goes deeper. My fingers brush against cold metal. The bottom is near. A sudden jolt sends me sprawling onto hard ground. The airlock door hisses open, and I scramble out, just as troopers pour in from above. Ket! I shout again, my voice barely audible over the din of stormtrooper boots. A figure dashes past me, into another passage. Go on without me, Ket calls back. He's chosen to stay behind, using his knowledge of the facility to create a distraction. His sacrifice might buy us time, but it could also mean our separation for good. Then Leia hesitates, torn between following and staying with her ally. The troopers are closing in. She can hear their breathing growing louder. The rule is clear, every decision has its price. I push forward into the darkness, the chill of the airlock biting at my skin as I vanish from sight. What will become of Ket? Will his distraction be enough to save us both? Or will it end in failure? Leia tumbles into a dark, echoing shaft, her breath ragged. She clings to the rough wall, her fingers scraping against gritty stone. Ow! The trooper's boots pound just outside. Ket's voice echoes faintly from above. Leia, go! He slides down faster now, the cold air biting at her throat as she fights for momentum. The corridor twists and turns, each turn a potential dead end. She must find an exit before the troopers catch up. Not one intro, or no. The rule is that every moment can mean the difference between freedom and capture. A sudden drop sends her plummeting into darkness. Her body hits a metal grate. She pulls herself up, gasping for air. A dim light flickers ahead, revealing a door that was previously hidden by shadows. She shoves against it, but it's stuck. Outgrow. The troopers are closing in her thuds, and the muffled voices growing louder. She needs to find another way out. When you survive to bargain, and she rubber and want to start what you wish to, and nurture on the guard. I cannot say nay. Pushing past the pain, she scrabbles at the walls, searching for any sign of a secondary exit. Her hands brush against a ventilation, grating that seems oddly familiar. She pulls it off, revealing a narrow tunnel leading down. Without hesitation, she ducks in, the cool air rushing through her lungs as she crawls into the darkness. The trooper's footsteps grow distant, but not silent. The rule bites harder. Each moment could mean the difference between safety and betrayal. Leia squeezes further down the tunnel, her heart pounding in her chest. She can't afford to stop now. Ket's distraction might be all she has. But the tunnel ends suddenly at a junction. A door blocks the path ahead, locked tight. The troopers' shouts are growing closer, and she hears them searching for her. She reaches out, feeling along the wall, until her fingers touch what feels like a control panel. Her mind races as she presses buttons, trying to find the right sequence. The door remains stubbornly sealed, but a small light on the side of it starts to blinker. A security override. Leia's hands tremble with exhaustion and fear. She needs to open this door before they do. With a desperate push, she manages to enter the correct sequence, 7325. That stay. The lock clicks, releasing her from the trap. She shoves the door open, emerging into a storage room that is empty, except for a pile of old data chips. The rule is that every moment can mean the difference between freedom and capture. Breathing heavily, Leia scans the area, her eyes landing on a small encrypted chip. If she gets this to Organa, it might buy them time. She grabs it and starts to run. The trooper's still not far behind. A sharp scream cuts through the air, a cry that echoes with pain and betrayal. Leia freezes, heart racing as she realizes Ket is being captured. The troopers are closing in on him now, dragging him away. Fear grips her, but she can't stop her. She must keep moving, keep fighting. The chip feels heavy in her hand, a fragile lifeline to their freedom. But as she turns the corner and sprints into an open corridor, she hears more troopers converging from all directions. The rule bites again off. Every moment could mean the difference between safety and another trap. What's one last it? Okay, can she make it? Or is this their final stand? Leia slides to a stop at the end of the shaft, her heart pounding as she peers into the darkness. A narrow corridor stretches ahead, its walls cold and unyielding. She clutches the data chip tighter, wondering if this is the way out or another dead end. The rule here is that every moment can mean the difference between freedom and capture. She eases herself forward, her eyes scanning for any signs of danger. The corridor is dimly lit, flickering emergency lights, casting shadows on the walls. A faint hum comes from above, a constant reminder of the trooper's presence. Leia's breath catches as she hears heavy footsteps approaching. She ducks into a small alcove, her blaster at the ready. The corridor opens ahead in an L shape. Troopers round the corner, their torches casting harsh light on the walls. Leia waits for them to vanish, her heart pounding with each passing moment. As they disappear around another bend, she takes off at a sprint, her footsteps echoing through the empty hallway. Rounding the next corner, she finds Ket standing there, his eyes wide with shock. "Leia!" "Not for long," she replies grimly, glancing back as troopers burst from another alcove. "We have to move." Ket nods, his resolve hardening. Together, they race down the corridor, dodging debris and avoiding any signs of surveillance. The data chip is their only ticket out, but it's not enough if the Empire figures out what they're trying to do. The rule here is that every piece of evidence must be accounted for. They reach a junction with 3 possible exits, left, right, or straight ahead. Finding on. Leia hesitates, her mind racing. The left path leads back to the main corridor, where troopers are already converging. Straight ahead seems risky. It could lead them into an ambush. Ket touches her arm gently. "Which way?" he asks quietly. Leia takes a deep breath and points towards the right. "That's our best shot." They turn, hearts pounding in unison. The corridor narrows as they run, their footsteps muffled by the metal floor. Suddenly, a door hisses open ahead, revealing a dimly lit chamber. They dive inside, just as troopers burst through the doorway. Leia and Ket crouch behind a stack of crates, their breaths ragged. The troopers scan the area, but do not find them. Silence falls heavy between them. The rule is that every moment can mean the difference between freedom and another trap. And another trap. Ket's voice breaks the silence. "We have to get out of here." Leia nods, her mind racing. They need to move fast before the troopers realize they were hiding. But what if this isn't their escape? What if it turns a dead end? "Let's go," she whispers, pushing herself forward. They slip out just as troopers storm past, their footsteps echoing down the corridor. The airlock ahead beckons, but will it lead to freedom or another trap set by the Empire?